Welcome, everyone, to the Planet MicroCap Showcase Virtual. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and I'd like to introduce our next presenter. It is Mina Such, founder and CEO of Ocuphire Pharma. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is OCUP on Nasdaq. Mina, take it away.
Thank you, Bob, for inviting Ocuphire to share their story with your audience and investors. Ocuphire Pharma. We are a publicly traded company on the Nasdaq, and so I will be making forward-looking statements, and we guide you to our SEC filings for our risk factors. Who is Ocuphire? It's a 4.5-year-old company that I founded here in Michigan, where our goal was to bring underappreciated and de-risked assets into Ocuphire, and we chose the ophthalmology area to do so. So we actually have 2 drug candidates. We have an oral tablet, APX 3330 for the back of the eye, and we have a product, Nyxol, for the front of the eye. Across these 2 products, we have over 4 indications and unmet needs that we are targeting. I'll show you some photos of the problems we're solving in the eye, and together they represent very, very large unmet needs and market size and market dollar opportunities, and in most cases, actually no competition. What we're really proud of is in the last several years, we have completed a significant number of trials, and each and every one of them has had a positive data readout. To be precise, since we've been public in November of 2020, we have conducted 5 trials on Nyxol and have had 6 positive data readouts across those 5 trials across our 3 indications. Most importantly, about 2 weeks ago, we announced a huge licensing transaction for Ocuphire. It is on our Nyxol product candidate, and it is for the full development and commercialization across all 3 indications: reversal of mydriasis, presbyopia, and night vision around in the US and around the world for Ocuphire with Viatris. And they are a large global healthcare firm, and I'll tell you more about that. But that transforms the story, the validation of the company. And as a result of that transaction, we are in a very strong financial position to support our operations and development into comfortably 2025, over 24 months of runway. And just to talk about, those were the past and our catalyst. We have more coming up on the left. We have an NDA submission on our first indication for Nyxol. We have the start of our phase 3 trials in presbyopia, which is age-related blurry near vision, and we'll start the rest of those trials early next year. And most importantly, we have it in the 2 years in the making, a phase 2b data readout in retina, in diabetic retinopathy specifically, with our APX program, a phase 2 trial readout. So lots of catalyst through the rest of the year and into next year. And that's really who Ocuphire is. We're very milestone and advancement driven. Just a little bit more on each of the assets. Here you see Nyxol on the left, and we can see as we now have 12 trials. We have great patent positions through mid-2030s, actually to late 2030s. We have got, again, 2 positive phase 3s, 1 positive phase 2 with 2 data readouts in that phase 2, as well as a positive phase 3 for RM, reversal of mydriasis, presbyopia, and night vision. So again, very, very productive, positive data readouts and large markets. And then over on the right, on the retina, we have this completely disruptive oral option versus injections into your eye to help treat the retina. And we, again, have been recruiting very well last year into early this year. It's a 6-month study roughly, and we basically had last patient, last visit a few months back. And we're very excited to, again, be able to share that we'll have an announcement of that data in early 2023. Again, 11 trials were completed on this asset, and the background on this was that there were 10 trials completed by Eisai, a Japanese pharma, in the liver area, and there was 1 trial completed in oncology by an Indiana company, and then we are doing the 12th trial. Just coming back to Nyxol, I want to give a shout out to the folks in Chicago. This asset was brought in out of Chicago, and they had 5 studies completed before we, in 1 indication, night vision, and then we expanded the indications, expanded the trials, and now have 12 in total that are completed. So truly in both small molecules. And here's our portfolio if you want to look at it as a pipeline. We created the company with the goal to have multiple shots on goal, front and back of the eye indications, help people with everyday vision and with severe vision loss, such as diabetic retinopathy. And so let me move to the transaction briefly, because this is kind of a big deal for Ocuphire. So we announced that we now have a partnership with FamyGen / Viatris. Viatris is a large global healthcare company, about 16 billion in revenues, over 10 billion in market cap. And they had selected earlier this year to get into ophthalmology. And 2 weeks ago on November 7th, they actually advised and presented to the market their strategy and plan to be in the ophthalmology business, which was 2 acquisitions, one of FamyGen, which has which we licensed our portfolio of drugs to, and also Oyster Point, a company that has the 3rd largest U.S. commercial infrastructure selling to ophthalmology and an approved product in dry eye. So what Viatris has now is a portfolio of both approved and in development stage candidates, and their goal and desire by 2028, by their chairman and in their press release and slides, is to be a $1 billion sales in ophthalmology by 2028. And so why is that important to all of you and to us is that the product from Oyster Point, the nasal spray, will be a part of that, but it will not make up most of that. And therefore, you can see here that Nyxol would be most likely 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the bag and in the portfolio, and of importance to them strategically, just as it is to us to find a partner that this is going to be a very important part of the process, and maybe number 2, 3, and 4 in their bag. So with that, a few other economics. It was a really nice deal. We got $35 million up front, basically a non-dilutive raise through that approach. All funding for Nyxol's covered. We have 130 million additional regulatory and sales milestones. And most importantly, we have tiered double-digit royalties through 2040. That is a huge component of the economics. And in addition, Viatris will actually do all the manufacturing and commercial in the US and do all the development manufacturing and commercial outside the US. So really nice partnership with someone who this is an area of growth. This is a large pharma, huge footprint. They're in 160 countries. So we're really excited to be a part of the Viatris ophthalmology portfolio. And in terms of what we accomplished was we were seeking a development partner to continue the work outside the US and to fund our work in the US. That worked out great. We were looking for a US partner because we have a product that we're filing the NDA. So within a year, it would be available commercially, and we needed a partner. We did not want to build our own sales force. We really think it's more efficient. You get broader coverage and more sales opportunities if you partner. And it allows us to focus on the retinal asset, which is a really disruptive part of the portfolio and exciting advancement. And of course, I've already talked about strengthening our cash position well into 2025. And for those of you where ophthalmology is new, I just wanted to, again, make a few high points about why this sector is so attractive. I have been doing pharmaceuticals, healthcare, biotech for almost 30 years. I've worked in almost every major disease area, from cardio, cancer, CNS, kidney, liver, heart, et cetera. And what's really great about ophthalmology is a ton of partnering, including a few deals just in the last couple months, even during these market conditions where there was 8 to 15 times multiples spent on revenues, and just activity both in front and back of the eye. There's an aging population that will just continue to grow, where eyesight is one of the things that we will lose its clarity and its function, and hopefully not all of its function. And people are willing to pay out of pocket for that, cash pay. Our trials, we have demonstrated in less than 2 years, we have done 5 additional trials, hundreds of subjects, all of them in the United States, and we did them with fast enrollment, short endpoints, and a relatively low cost per patient, especially relative to cancer, cardiovascular, and other diseases. And most importantly, look at all the products that the FDA division of the ophthalmology unit has approved. This is a unit that is very accessible, very clear with their feedback. We've had 4 meetings with them on Nyxol alone, formal meetings. And really, you get your guidance and you essentially know what you need to do and what your path is for approval. And you can see the high productivity of new products available to patients and doctors in ophthalmology. So with that, I'm going to spend a few minutes kind of on Nyxol and just give you a little bit more depth around this eye drop. And I'm going to start with, and then I'll do APX. On Nyxol, what's important is that there are 2 muscles that control the size of your pupil. I didn't tell you earlier about the underlying idea of all these indications we want to go after is because we want to reduce the pupil size. We want to do that safely and moderately. And so we use that dilator muscle, which is in a radial fashion, and we inhibit or relax it. But there's another way you could also control the pupil size, which is by contracting the sphincter muscle. And that is how other players, especially in the presbyopia landscape, which is the one area where there's competition, it's good that there is there, validates the large size. But unfortunately, those same receptors that you're using to contract on the sphincter muscle also exist right here on the ciliary muscle, the sphincter muscle, and then on your ciliary muscle. And as a result, actually, when you contract it, that's what causes headaches, brow aches, sort of shifts in blurriness in your vision, and unfortunately, most unfortunately, a risk of retinal detachment. So what's really great about Nyxol, and what I'd love for everyone to remember, is it is different than the other potential ways you can modulate your pupil. And we are alone as an alpha-1 blocker, and we don't have those other known side effects that I described, whether headaches or risk of retinal detachment. And it's what allows us to go after these 3 separate and unique indications, which is reversing dilation, presbyopia, and night vision. So here is the product candidate profile slide, which shows you that over 12 trials, we've really had a lot of consistency in this moderate pupil reduction. It's about 1 to 1.5 millimeters in diameter. This nice safety profile, including no headaches. A durability, which is also differentiated, as we are the only drug that actually has a 24-hour effect. Usually most eye drops are a few hours. And we're also preservative-free, and we already have a stable commercial formulation. So we've done all of this work, and this is a really nice product profile across those 3 indications. So instead of showing you data for each and every one of these 5 trials and each and every one of the endpoints, we've summarized them here. And so what you want to take away is that we've agreed with endpoints with the FDA across these 3 indications. We have met the phase 3 endpoints in reversal of mydriasis, in night vision disturbance, and we have met the planned endpoints through the phase 2 endpoints that we've met for the presbyopia program. These were well-controlled studies. You can see the statistics are all very large, including all the way out to 0.0001. The magnitude of the benefit of Nyxol versus placebo was clear, sometimes as much as 50% spread. In other times, maybe a 10 or 20% spread, but always a big impact and statistics on making a difference in patients to rapidly reverse their dilation, to improve the focus of your near vision, or to improve and dial out that halo and glare of night vision. So that's really the product profile and the data and the studies that we're really proud that we've executed. All of these were just in the last 2 years. And so market opportunity, I said earlier that there was a lot of patients, 100 million dilations, 128 million presbyopes, and 38 million night vision disturbance incidences or patients that have that complaint. And when you sort of bring those addressable markets, our market research that we've done, looking at segments and looking at patients' willingness to buy and pay, cash pay out of pocket, you kind of end up with opportunities that are quite large in every indication and collectively make potentially a 10 billion market opportunity, or definitely a blockbuster revenue opportunity. And definitely RM alone is, we believe, 100, 200, maybe 300 million revenue opportunity. And we've tested, the price points of $10 to the doctors, and then they could upcharge potentially $15, $20, $25 to the patients. And really everyone wins, everyone makes money, and the patient's happy in that instance because they're not stuck with a dilated pupil and that discomfort that goes with, that dilation, whether it's lack of ability to read, drive, work, play, or whether you're just really sensitive to the light coming in. You're waiting for your eyes to return back to normal. And that's what our drug does. And all I wanted to show here is we're really proud that, again, we've been on this process. There were actually 4 trials that made up the MIRA program, all of which we started as Ocuphire, and we've completed all the manufacturing. So we are ready and in place to submit the NDA this quarter. And what that means then is next year, about 10 months later, when it's approved, Viatris will be our commercial partner in the US through the infrastructure of the Oyster Point acquisition and other resources that they'll provide. And they would sell directly to the ophthalmology community, the optometry community, and the retinal specialists, which is all 3 major practices of eye care. And then they sell it to the patient. So no middle folks, no payers, no pharmacies, no paperwork, no training, everyone dilates. And on the left is a little photo of our product. It's a single use in a 5-strip vial format, and each vial would be for a patient. So really excited that we now have the answer to a question we got a lot before 2 weeks ago, which is, how are you going to commercialize this product that you're filing an NDA on, and all of your success of advancing your product? And we actually were obviously looking at such alternatives, and happy to announce our partner. And with that, on presbyopia, I just want to make a couple comments, which is that we actually have Nyxol alone as an agent, but we also have Nyxol with low-dose pilocarpine. And pilocarpine is actually the active ingredient in Allergan's product, but they're at 3 times the dose at 1.25. And you might ask, well, why did you think about doing a combo? Well, 3 years ago, we didn't know that Nyxol alone would work. We did a phase 2 and found out both the combo worked and Nyxol worked. And it's because we were able to get the pupil in this target zone of 2 to 3 millimeters of diameter, both alone and then, of course, definitely with the combo. And so we actually have 2 products for presbyopia, but we lead with Nyxol alone, leveraging all of that work that I just showed you that we've done for reversal of mydriasis, same concentration, same product, same manufacturing, same preclinical package to the FDA. But then we also have the option for patients who may not get all the ad power they need with taking the drop. Maybe they're a little bit older presbyope, 55, 60 years of age, and their presbyopia, their near vision's really bad, or other reasons where they would want to have a little bit more ad power. But what I really wanted to highlight is it is a map. I said earlier that there is a little bit of competition here. It validates it, and it's led by Allergan AbbVie, big player. They got approval about a year ago. They have struggled a little bit in their first year launch, but not because the category of presbyopia in 128 million people isn't big. All of us almost are guaranteed losing our near vision for half of our lifetimes. Somewhere between 40 to 50 years old, you'll have this issue. And we want to have a solution beyond reading glasses. So having a large pharma really build that consumer awareness, do DDC campaigns, work with the physician community and also educate them, figure out how to incorporate presbyopia drops into their practice is really going to be set. And so when we get there in about 2 years, it really does allow us an opportunity to shine with our differentiated profile. And what that is a different mechanism, which then allows for a more safer and tolerable profile, such as no headaches and no risk of retinal detachment. We work for 24 hours versus the 3 to 6 hours that most of the other players currently, including Vuity, work. We also can target a group of patients that they cannot, that are high myopes, and you might ask me what that is, and that is basically patients that have had distance correction their whole lives or much of their life at a very high level, so -4 diopters or greater. They would not be given Vuity or anything that's on this competitive map that uses the other muscle, but Nyxol could be an option and a refreshing option for them. And there's about 10 million of the 128 million are high myopes. And in addition, and this is actually links to our next program, is we had the positive phase 3 data in night vision disturbance. And it turns out that we're the only ones that have run a phase 3 study, the only ones pursuing a label for night vision. And actually, rather than making the pupil too small so that you can't see at night, we actually have 3 lines of gain as well as 2 lines of gain on night vision. So really nice differentiation. And again, you can take our drops at night and be on all day with the benefits of Nyxol. And with that, I'm going to switch to APX3330. Very much an exciting part of our portfolio, and excited to share a little bit more about it. So diabetic retinopathy, 1 in 4 diabetics will get diabetic eye disease. There's about 8 million, therefore, of diabetic retinopathy subjects out there here in the US, leading cause of blindness, and no treatment option that is utilized. There are some approved products such as Eylea, Lucentis, but those injections are not used at this earlier stage of the diabetic disease in the eye. And so really excited to offer something for these patients. And a closer look at the patients is that their problems in the eye are similar to the problems they have elsewhere with cardiovascular or neuropathy, which is that basically they have a high inflamed state in addition to a lot of their vessels due to the amount of sugar that gets exposed to them that become leaky, which is what causes this VEGF problem. And so this is your diabetic patient. And what we have is a mechanism for APX3330, which is perfectly fit for a diabetic. We have an anti-VEGF and an anti-inflammatory mechanism with a novel target that's upstream, a transcription factor regulator. And we think it's perfectly suited for the diabetics. I talked earlier about the amount of data that we already had from the prior sponsor. 11 clinical trials, over 20 preclinical studies, a ton of great MOA work done, 70 papers and counting from Dr. Mark Kelly and other collaborators from in vitro to in vivo to clinic. And we then took this asset with this profile, which is shown on this slide, which is basically a really nice safety profile and a dose that we can select of 600 mg. And we took it into an eye study. So it's the 12th study with the oral tablet APX3330, but it's the first study in the eye. And we did a very well-controlled 25-site, 100-subject study in diabetic patients, diabetic retinopathy subjects, where they could have DME in their fellow eye. And by doing that, we actually will get data on both diabetic retinopathy and diabetic macular edema. And the only difference between those is diabetic macular edema is the advanced stage of diabetic retinopathy. You get fluid build up in your eye, cause scar tissue, and you have vision loss. Diabetic retinopathy, you can be at different stages and not have that secondary sets of effects. Once you get DME, most patients do start injections. These are monthly or bi-monthly injections for life. This is very much a compliance burden. And so therefore the treatment efficacy broadly in the space of retina isn't where it needs to be because patients aren't compliant, not because Eylea or Lucentis don't work, at least in some patients, but in diabetic patients, you have an inflammation process going as well. And actually they need another mechanism to get at that part of the disease pathology. So we're really excited. This was a 24-week study. We fully enrolled it. We had last patient last visit, as I said earlier, in late August. Top line data coming soon, early 2023. And we're looking at a ton of measurements. This is a phase 2. We are looking for the signal for how we design the study to move into phase 3. And so we look forward to many ways to show either improvement or lack of progression, what happens depending on your severity when you start, what happens with biomarkers, including inflammation markers. And importantly, for this study, all year at medical conferences, we have provided an interim update. And in October, we did a KOL event day with 3 outstanding retinal specialists. And we actually showed the next 2 slides. We showed what the demographics of these 103 subjects that we fully enrolled into the study look like. And you can see it's a really nice population around their demographics, their starting diabetic severity score, as well as their vision attributes. So really nice population we recruited. And we actually had 15 DME eyes. Here we go. And so we actually, from that data, we wanted to share safety on a masked basis. So this is essentially interim mass safety data, but it is from all of the subjects. And what you want to notice is there's really nothing interesting for me to point out. So there is both no organ toxicities, no SAEs, very few treatment-related AEs, and most of them were mild and very similar to what we saw from the other 11 trials. So no new surprises, just a little bit of mild diarrhea or skin rash, but mild and about less than 5%. And so we found our dose 600 mgs. We now have 10,000 subject days at 600 mgs. And why do I tell you all this about safety? Well, partly safety is one of the key risks of any drug development, especially in phase 2. But in the past in retina, there were several oral programs that have tried to attack retinal diseases, whether DR, DME, or wet AMD, and they were unsuccessful in 3 out of 4 cases due to safety, either liver or heart toxicities, and we don't have those. So it really gives us a lot of good comfort in de-risking going into our data readout for at least half of the equation. And then just in terms of market size, this is big on its own. Diabetic retinopathy is the most number of subjects in retina, over 8 million. Even if you assume 1/3 to half of the Eylea type charging on an annual basis, you will get to numbers that are very, very large, very, very quickly for the market opportunity. And we really think that this is a mega blockbuster opportunity of the likes of the Eyleas and Lucentises, which are $6 billion, $3 billion drugs. And we don't think that doctors would just only use it in diabetic retinopathy because of the anti-inflammatory and the upstream anti-VEGF properties. We see utility across many, many of the retinal diseases. And I do want to point out to this audience that GA, which stands for geographic atrophy, is essentially where 2 really important companies, Apellis and Iveric, have recently provided phase 3 data. They have analysts to have them at a multi-billion-dollar revenue opportunity, and they trade at multi-billion dollars in value. They have just recently submitted their NDAs, but it gives you an opportunity to see kind of what the potential is in the space. And other retinal companies that have focused on DME or wet AMD have done deals that are over $1 billion, or were at market caps when they were phase 2 with proof of concept data. So again, we're excited about this. Is our not necessarily high risk, but more risk than Nyxol, but with huge reward in a more classic biotech risk. And with that, here's my team, very experienced, very proud of our execution track record and the diversity that we have here in our camaraderie. We're a small but mighty and impactful team. We have a great group of KOLs, and unlike many ophthalmology stories, we are one of the few that has a front of the eye ophthalmology, a back of the eye retina, and optometry community, all part of our advisory board and part of our programs, because our products affect both products affect across these specialties. And then we have a very experienced and successful board. And I just end with some milestones just to reiterate that we have been highly successful with 6 positive data readouts in the Nyxol program across our 3 indications, 4 phase 3s in there. We have what we need to submit this Nyxol NDA. We just recently announced this huge commercial development and commercial partnership. We're about to launch some more studies. We usually run anywhere from 2 to 4 studies at a time in the US. We'll have this big data readout, disruptive readout in early 2023, and then just continue from there. More trials, the approval, commercialization, and more readouts of those trials. And all the while now, we will continue our focus on strategic partnering dialogue, both in the US and outside the US on APX 3030. You can see that the deal that we transformed was because we were actively in dialogue with partners on our Nyxol data that then translated into this really great and just the right partner for us at the right time. And I'm summarizing what I shared earlier. This story, it's special for financial strength that we have, unlike many biotechs, for the fact that we are now at the doorsteps of submitting our NDA and being a commercial company on our first asset with a partner identified, and with disruptive 2-year data in the making in the retinal space, and all of that, on very capital efficient burn rate. And we have a very strong cash pro forma of around just under 50 million, and a ton of analysts, 5 that cover us, and that have very exciting price targets in research if you access those. So I'll end there to just say we're really excited to share our story. Thank you for listening, and thanks again to Bob and the team for inviting us.
All right, Mina, thank you so much for that presentation. We're running close to the end of time here, but I wanted to get in a couple questions. So, as you mentioned, you announced this global commercialization partnership with Viatris. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Viatris. So I'm sure, from what you can tell us, I'm sure the follow is like, okay, you did the deal. Now, when is the expected commercialization? So from what you can tell us, when do you expect commercialization to hopefully begin? And then part 2 of that is on manufacturing. Are you looking to do that in-house, or have you already engaged the CMO?
Yeah, so we have commercial product made because we need that for your NDA submission. You have to have 3 registration batches made equally the same. We did that last summer. And so we do have a global partner, contract manufacturing organization that has made our product. And we will basically take that relationship and bring that over to Viatris, and Viatris will be in charge of all manufacturing. And we also had a second source started in Europe as well. So we'll transfer those relationships over. But Ocuphire has not just been doing clinical trials. In order to get to the FDA's doorstep, you actually have to do all the manufacturing work as well. I'm not sure if that's fully appreciated because it never gets slide time. So in an investor presentation, but we've done all the work, and they are small molecules. So I want to reiterate, when I brought these assets in, there was a purpose behind both of them, to build this portfolio, to create this risk reward, but also to de-risk. Small molecules are scalable, they're low cost. You can have multiple vendors that can help you make them, whether you make the small molecule as a solution, the eye drop, or whether you make them as an oral tablet. These are things that have been well honed. So that answers that part on a commercialization. Yes, we expect 10 months after we submit to be able to hear back on a PDUFA date and the approval, potential approval of Nyxol for reversal of mydriasis, the first indication. Technically, you'd be ready to sell the next day, but obviously most companies take a little bit, maybe a few weeks or a few months just to get everything together before they do their formal launch. So we would fully expect Viatris, we'll be working together with them as we start the new year and doing the pre-commercial planning. But I would say shortly thereafter approval, I couldn't give you the date, but we'll be working with our partner. But it would be, either late 2023 or early 2024, just based on logistics and decisions on when's the right launch time. But in a very short period of time, be very exciting for our team who's worked on this product. At that point, will be over 5 years to see the product get to patients. So we're really excited on this US partnership.
Absolutely. And one last question, and I'm asking this to pretty much every company that's presenting here today. Sure. We're in tough markets. What measures is the company doing to manage some of these macroeconomic pressures that are currently affecting most microcap companies across the board?
Yeah, so I would say, well, first I'd say that despite COVID, we have recruited across 5 trials and hundreds of subjects in both of our programs. That's actually then 6 trials. So I think we've shown that some of those dynamics did not impede our progress and execution. No, neither did the fact we have global supply chains, and we have worked through that as well. So I think in terms of macro, I'd say 2 things. Inflation. So we think we just budget a little bit more for cost per patient, cost per sites, and who our vendors are, that they're going to maybe pass on some of their cost to us. So just in our budgeting and thinking, we put that in. But I think otherwise, biotech is a little bit more insulated from some of the broader macro trends. But again, we're very conscientious of COVID, inflation, and obviously exterior, issues. But for the most part, the focus of creating value and data in a biotech company is clinical data. And obviously, and then commercial unmet need. And so the partnership, and that was going to get to, is the way we've actually managed it is we have been, on this process to find a U.S. partner since we had our positive phase 3 data in the spring. And we're really excited that we found that partner. And so for us, we de-risked the financial part of the markets by basically doing essentially a 35 million, non-dilutive financing, having almost $50 million in our bank account, cash through the next 2+ years comfortably into 2025, giving us basically an opportunity to ignore the volatility of the markets and not being dependent on a financing. We are really in a unique position as a result of that transaction, and the fact that we run the company very capital efficiently on top of that already. So I think we're ready for 2023 and anything else that it brings. And this partnership, as well as our own efforts to date, just really position us very well for for whatever's ahead. And I think that was by design, and the timing was by design, and we're excited. We're not excited about the backdrop of the market. We want to see that shift and come back to normal dynamics, but we understand that that's going to take its own time, and we'll just be able to keep executing and advancing on our side. So
very good. All right, so Mina, we're there. Thank you so much for participating and presenting with us today, and for everyone listening and watching, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Bob.